Hi guys, William Morris here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Gypsy Fiddle from Red Room Audio. So the library is around 4 GB on disk and is made for the full version of Kontakt 5.8.1 or above. So you may be wondering, what makes this a gypsy fiddle and not a violin library? Well, as this is part of the Traveller Series of instruments, the first thing is that it's been recorded on location in Sofia, Bulgaria. But the main difference, I would say, is the number of genre-specific playing techniques and ornaments that have been captured. So the library is comprised of 3 main patches: this multi-sampled playable instrument, a large number of phrases and effects, and finally a light version of the playable patch, which uses about half the amount of RAM of the full version. So I'm actually going to take a look at the phrases and effects section first, and then we'll move on to the playable instrument. So this patch is a collection of effects noises and then these phrases at the bottom. To change between any of them, you just use the key switches listed here. So if we start on C0, we'll be in the effects percussive section, which sounds a little bit like this. So it's a sort of claps and stomps kind of vibe, really nice for adding a little bit of rhythm into your playing. So if we go on to the next key switch, the C sharp is FX chops. And these to me sound like sort of bow stop type sounds, so a little bit kind of screechy and sort of percussive in between playing. But it's a really nice inclusion, I think, to have all these effects samples added, so you can just add all that sort of realism into your performance and your playing. So next up we have some Fiddler Whistles. And there's quite a few of those to add in if you want them. We've also got some shouts. We have some string noises. So what I found with these is that they are very quiet because they are basically just tiny little sort of string nudges with the bow, or parts of the fingers on the board. So I'm just going to turn these up so that you can kind of properly hear them. But I guess in context, you might want to turn them down to match the performance. So you got little slides, little swipes, and sort of taps and stuff like that. Let's just take this back down. And the last category is the scrapes. So that's it for the effects section. It's really nice that they've included this. I just think it adds all that kind of realism and human sort of side back into the playing, but gives you the control over it so you can add and delete as sort of needed for the performance. There's a really simple control panel to go with all of the effects stuff, so it's just volume. You can do tuning, and you've got a stereo width. And with this last one, you can just control the start and end points of the sample. Okay, so the next little section we have up is the phrases. So these aren't loops, they're sort of one-shot improvisations and phrases that you can play. And there are a huge amount of these. As you can see, there's 5 banks here, but within each kind of bank, there's a whole rafter of different sounds in between each key switch as well. So let's just have a listen to a few of the energetic improvs. So there's lots of these. As you can see, you get that amount on the keyboard for F sharp. So I think they've done really well here capturing these sort of phrases. They're really sort of authentic to my ears, and the playing on all of them is really lovely, really expressive. The downside obviously is that they are phrases, so there's only so much you can do to manipulate them to your track. But we do have a few options in the settings here. So Obviously we have volume, and the main one will be tuning, so you can change the tuning center of whatever you're playing. So for example, so if I maybe turn this one down just a few semitones. So I think at that point, and especially down, they sound really natural still, so that gives you obviously a lot of room to shift away from the recorded key. Let's just go all the way down. So even at like -12 there, you know, it's low, and it obviously sounds, you know, much lower than the recorded key, but there's really no sort of, or very little artifacting or anything like that to my ears. I think up is sometimes a little more tricky, so let's just go up by a few. Which still sounds nice, but then all the way to the top. Once you get in that +12 sort of category, you can obviously start to hear a little bit more artifacting on it. But really that is a huge leap. And obviously we've got all that in between, which sounds pretty nice and natural, really. So that's one way you can alter the phrasing, is just by using the tuning. The other is to alter the speed control here. So from that phrase, we can go down, then all the way down. Basically, you get a plus or minus 30%. So we can go from 100 to 70 or 100 to 130. So at 130, actually still sounds pretty natural. It's obviously very, very fast. And some of these being sort of gypsy phrases are quite sort of quick and energetic anyway. So at 130, they sound very fast, almost sort of superhuman fast on a few of them. But really nice that you can sort of alter the speed. It's just another thing to kind of get you away from having the same phrase that other people might be using, and also a good way to match it into your track as well. And the same as the UFX patches, you have control over the start and end point of the sample. Okay, so let's listen to a few more banks of these then, just to get an idea of the other ones. So that's sort of bank one of the lyrical improvs, but if I go up to the G sharp key switch, we get another bank again. A lot of these phrases are quite long as well, so you've got kind of a big sort of palette to choose from if you want to end up chopping points in and out of it. So yeah, there's 3 banks on the lyrical improvs, and then if we go on to the polyphonic improvs, there's another 3 banks as well, with a whole collection of phrases in each one. These are the Romany improvs. And there's still another bank on those as well. So you really do have a huge selection to go through and to choose from. Okay, so last one is the runs and arps. Okay, so I think that wraps it up for the phrases and effects section. The only other thing is just the effects rack. So you've got a big choice of effects if you want to add anything in. But now let's move on to the main playable patch, the Gypsy Fiddle patch. And it's pretty good load time there, considering it's 5 GB for the whole thing. This is the full patch with every articulation and ornament loaded at the same time. You can use this tact control here to unload the various articulations, and also you can set up how the articulations work and how they're mapped and so forth in here. But let's just go back to the main page. And so this is a fairly simple setup on the UI. You just have your various articulations mapped to your different key switches. We have a sort of a regular section here, and then the Gypsy variations into the next one. And these ones on the far right hand side and also on the second page here, they are the ornaments, which I guess are sort of some of the more specific playing styles and techniques. And so we'll get to those in a second, but let's start over on the regular sustains. And so this patch cycles through 3 different play styles. So you have sustain with a progressive vibrato and an accented sustain. And it will basically automatically switch between them depending on the velocity that you play. So here's the very lowest, the middle sustain, and the hardest accented one. Now my play style is obviously pretty far away from any sort of gypsy or folk kind of genre, and as always I'll let you know that my keyboard playing is not the best, but hopefully it'll still give you an idea of how the library sounds and the tone, etc. And also maybe how interesting it would be to use this in a non-sort of gypsy style as well, because I think just on its own it's actually a really nice sounding violin. So that's a little bit of the sustains. Next up is the trills. Really nice stuff. So let's try some spiccatos. So they have a really nice range on them. You can hear there's obviously quite a few velocity layers in there. There's a really nice kind of scratchy one up at the top that gives you all that sort of hard accenting power. So here's pizzicato. And now we move on to the Gypsy Style, which definitely all has a different tone to it, and the articulations are a little bit more sort of geared towards that sort of specific genre style as well. So here's our sustains. It's really nice, it's really kind of expressive. You get these kind of restrikes on the bow, which I think add a really nice sort of bit of interest to the playing. So here's the gypsy version of the trills. And something I should have mentioned before with the other trills is that you have this interval control here, so you can switch between minor and major trills. So here's your minor and the major version. So next we have the Tenuto. It's really nice, and you don't get that sort of articulation that often in violin libraries. So the next few are rhythmic repetitions, and we start with the eighth notes. And these ones are actually tempo synced, so you can do faster and slower variations. But like anything tempo synced, it does degrade a little bit the further you move away from the recorded tempo. Let's just have a listen to the 16ths. And here's a spiccato variation. I do really like these. It's a nice inclusion to have kind of rhythmic stuff, especially when it's programmed as, you know, really sort of commonly used 8th and 16th patterns, etc. I'm not sure the changes between them sound super smooth, but I think if you're using these repetition ones, it's probably going to be accompanied by something else, which I think will help to ease those transition points between the notes. So next up we have some Bartok Pizzicato. So your Bartoks are almost this sort of snap style of pizzicato, where you're really kind of pulling off from the fingerboard. Next we have some Fossando and Decrescendo, and these will vary depending on the velocity that you strike. So here's the Fossando. And decrescendos. So those are all the different main articulations, but then you can add all of these kind of different ornaments, as they're called, over pretty much anything that you find in the rest of the articulations. So to demonstrate, let's go back to the Gypsy sustain. But now using the key switches from C1 upwards, we can activate these ornaments. So the first one is the horse. And for me, this is the part where the library really sort of sets itself apart from, you know, a lot of other violin libraries, because you get these very specific sort of playing styles and techniques that are going to help you pull off, I guess, a more authentic gypsy sort of style and vibe. So we also have ghost notes. You have passion. We have a slide up. There's just something very gypsy about that slide up. I know it's a kind of technique that other styles sort of use as well, but this one just automatically puts you in that kind of gypsy, folky sort of mood. We also have some flourishes. And this continues over onto the second page. Not sure how you pronounce this one, but this is how it sounds. Really nice stuff. And we've got some pull-offs and hammer-ons, and you can change these depending again on the velocity that you strike with. So pull-off is lower. And hammer-on is higher. We also have a triplet. And the final one is just a release for the crescendo. So just a little added tail for that articulation. So like I say, I think these really are my sort of favorite part of the library, and it's probably what I'll be using from most of it. So I can really see this library sort of serving a few purposes. The phrases and effects stuff, more the phrases, I think will be a really nice kind of go-to for composers when you're maybe asked to compose in a very specific sort of gypsy or folk style. And maybe it's not something you're kind of comfortable with or you've played before particularly. So I think in that instance, the phrases are really going to be something that could save the day for you sort of thing. The main playable patch, I think is just a really nice sounding violin, even on its own. Like I say, I like the dry sort of nature that it's been recorded. You can hear a lot of detail in the playing, and you have all these kind of fantastic little extras in the effects section and in the ornaments here to kind of add all that interest and sort of human element to it as well. So definitely if you're, trying to recreate or do something authentic in a gypsy sort of style, I think this is going to be a bit of a no-brainer, but also might make a really nice addition for someone just looking for a slightly different flavour to use in their other genres. Okay guys, so I hope you've enjoyed this look at the Gypsy Fiddle. If you have any questions at all, just let me know in the comments, and I'll see you again on the next one.